Something is breaking in Russia, and it isn't a frontline trench. It's the engine room that powers the war, the cash flows, the factories, the labor pool, the confidence that tomorrow's paycheck will buy tomorrow's bread. For years, the Kremlin boasted that sanctions bounced off and the ruble was unbothered. But the dashboard lights are flickering now, growth slipping, prices grinding upward, fuel lines stretching, and the hidden costs of a forever war finally stepping into the spotlight. The battlefield runs on math, and Russia's math is getting ugly. When the full-scale invasion began, Russia didn't collapse. It bent. Years of sanction proofing, larger reserves, lower external debt, tighter capital controls, and a rapid pivot to non-Western trade softened the first blow. Energy sales rerouted east and south. Import substitution picked up just enough to keep lights on in critical sectors. The Kremlin pushed wartime spending through the budget and off it, and the central bank throttled the ruble's fall with rate hikes and hard controls. To the casual eye, especially in Moscow and St. Petersburg, life looked fine. Defense plants moved to double and triple shifts. The state poured money into drones, artillery shells, glide kits, and armored vehicle refurbishment. Recruiters fanned out with cash bonuses and life-changing salaries for poorer regions. The propaganda line wrote itself. The economic blitzkrieg had failed, and Russia could outlast. Wartime booms hide distortion. They borrow from tomorrow. As the war ground on, pressures multiplied. A tightening labor market as hundreds of thousands left, were mobilized, or didn't return. Supply chains rerouted through costlier gray corridors. Inflation seeded by deficit spending, and a currency that stayed managed only by taking away your choices. Convert less, move less, spend less abroad. The Kremlin built a state on hydrocarbons. Ukraine learned to strike the nodes that turn oil into money. Refineries, depots, and terminals hit by recurring drone and missile attacks don't simply burn. They lag future output, force costly repairs, and scare away insurers. Each blast transmits through the entire domestic fuel system. Price spikes, shortages, rationing, and a new kind of political heat the regime can't put on a morning map. Big war means big budgets, and big budgets in a sanctioned economy mean hard trade-offs. As non-oil revenues struggle and oil and gas taxes grow more volatile, gaps open. You can plug them with one-offs, windfall grabs, special duties, or by raiding rainy day funds. But raiding is a finite sport. Each new hole patch creates two more downstream, especially when interest rates must stay high to fence in the ruble. Shelves are not bare, but baskets are thinner. Prices on essentials have marched. Higher ticket purchases, cars, appliances, fall back. Small businesses face credit that's either too expensive or simply unavailable. The headline numbers a TV host reads can claim resilience. The cash in a wallet says otherwise. War runs on production, not slogans. Artillery barrels don't grow on trees, and neither do replacement pilots or turbine blades. Sustained combat consumes the kinds of things a modern economy makes with global inputs: machine tools, precision bearings, high-end chips, specialty chemicals, software. Cut off enough of those inputs, and you don't get an immediate cliff. You get a slow loss of fidelity. More breakdowns, more rework, lower accuracy, shorter lifespans, and higher unit cost. The factory still works, but the product you needed yesterday arrives tomorrow, and it fails the day after. Mobilization pays today's unit targets by subtracting tomorrow's workforce. Skilled technicians can't be conjured. Demographics were already a headwind. War made it a crosswind. Employers bid up wages to fill gaps, which pushes prices higher, which forces tighter policy, which slows investment. A loop that looks like motion on paper but bleeds capacity in reality. Capital controls are a painkiller with side effects. They anchor the exchange rate at the cost of trust. Households and firms adapt, hoarding dollars informally, over-invoicing imports, under-invoicing exports, or simply waiting. Velocity slows. Investment horizons shorten. When money can't move, innovation does not arrive. And when innovation doesn't arrive, your drone looks like last year's model forever. Moscow once wielded oil and gas as leverage. That leverage eroded as buyers diversified, and as Ukrainian strikes learned the shape of Russian energy infrastructure. Every refinery outage ricochets into budget math. If you burn crude but can't export refined product easily, you're sitting on barrels that don't translate to fiscal firepower. Early sanction packages had obvious holes. The Kremlin exploited them. But sanction regimes evolve. Compliance tightens, thresholds lower, shipping and insurance route through narrower straits. You don't need a perfect embargo to create real friction. You need enough friction to make every Russian widget slightly worse and every Russian delivery slightly late. Attrition isn't just a battlefield term. The Kremlin can stage parades. It can't mandate optimism. When prices climb and futures shrink, even apolitical citizens get tired. When service stations run dry outside major hubs, people talk. When the war bonus buys less each quarter, recruiting slows. Stability in Russia is performative. Economics is the script supervisor. The facade didn't crack with a single headline. It creased under accumulations. You can circle several inflection points: steeper inflation after each fuel shock, the visible drag in non-defense sectors, the scramble to raise extra revenues from wealthy citizens and state firms, the public push for temporary, higher taxes framed as patriotic fairness, and the sober acknowledgments from establishment voices that growth under 2% won't cover the bill. That candor, rare and careful, signals the Kremlin now confronts arithmetic on air. Early in the war, Moscow bet that time punished Kiev. Today, time is starting to punish Moscow's economy faster than it degrades Ukraine's fighting capacity. Western assistance can surge or sag, but Ukraine's strike economy, cheap drones, better software, longer reach, has a simple goal: make every additional month of war cost Russia more than the previous one. Strategically, that's leverage. Think of three numbers as mental pegs. Low single-digit growth that can't meet a high single-digit war and security bill. Defense industrial output that rose sharply in year 1 and 2, but now hits constraint walls. Labor, inputs, maintenance, and slows. And inflation that refuses to meld away without crushing credit conditions. None of these alone kills a war effort. Together they starve it of oxygen. The most likely path is not dramatic collapse, but a compaction. Growth oscillating around 1%, double-digit defense burden, creeping inflation, high rates, and a currency held in place by ever tighter rules. The state will keep diverting from non-defense sectors to the war machine. That buys shells at the price of future competitiveness. Civilian industries atrophy, especially export-oriented ones that need Western-grade components. Over time, quality decays. Rework becomes policy. A big external or internal shock, major infrastructure loss, a sanction tightening on shipping, or a domestic political jolt could produce a sharper break. Currency pressure, a spike in fuel prices, emergency tax grabs, and accelerated use of sovereign funds. The Kremlin would stabilize, but the patch would scar. Each cycle erodes confidence and raises the cost of the next fix. If economic pain starts to outrun battlefield gain, Moscow's incentives change. You don't need a diplomatic conversion. You need a budgetary surrender masked as pragmatism, limited freezes, humanitarian pauses, or elastic ceasefire language that lets the Kremlin lower burn rates without admitting defeat. Kiev will keep hammering energy and logistics targets inside Russia, especially refineries, rail choke points, and depots, because those strikes echo in the budget and the ballot. It will expand domestic production of drones and munitions, diversify guidance components, and integrate targeting with Western ISR to get more output from fewer inputs. The idea isn't to win the economy outright. It's to tilt the slope so that each month degrades Russian capacity a little more than Ukrainian capacity. The United States and Europe will keep iterating sanctions, fewer loopholes, more secondary enforcement, and more focus on dual-use tech. They don't need zero leakage. They need enough drag to keep Russia paying a premium for yesterday's technology. Expect a longer game on financial flows, profits from frozen assets, ring-fenced insurance norms, and stricter know-your-customer on transshipment hubs. Quiet policy wonks move mountains one comma at a time. Raise temporary taxes that become permanent. Demand voluntary contributions that feel mandatory. Offer new bonuses to recruits because recruitment is gravity-bound. What worked last year buys less this year. Push deeper import substitution campaigns that generate headlines now and bottlenecks later. And tell a story of stoic resilience while quietly triaging the civilian economy. The narrative will insist Russia is fine. The policy memo will confess it is not. In 2014, Russia took Crimea with limited kinetic burn and significant domestic euphoria at low economic cost. Today's war is an industrial grinder. It eats steel, fuel, money, and time at unreasonable rates. The sanction perimeter is wider, the technology ladder higher, and the workforce older. Moscow can still finance a war. It cannot finance a war and a future without paying an opportunity cost it can never recoup. Great power militaries don't win on volume alone. They win on learning curves. Ukraine and its partners keep bending that curve with software, sensors, and tactics that travel fast. Russia learns too, but the environment it has built, controlled capital, politicized industry, brain drain, slows diffusion. You can copy a drone airframe in a month. You can't copy a flexible innovation culture on command. If Russia must choose between guns and growth, it will choose guns until growth withers to the point that guns suffer anyway. That is not a straight line. Expect oscillations, a good quarter off a refinery repair, a bad quarter after a sanction tweak, a ruble dip, an emergency rate hike, a soft-pedaled admission from a business lobbyist that 2% growth is a mirage. Each oscillation is a little lower than the last. That's decay. Keep your eye on 3 practical tells. Visible fuel rationing outside elite cities, recruitment incentives that step up faster than inflation, and fiscal gimmicks, special fees, patriotic bond pushes, windfalls, arriving more often. These are not abstract indicators. They are the pulse of a system under sustained strain. If you took value from this breakdown, help us push it further. Subscribe for our next deep dive, where we'll map the strikes and sanction tweaks that change the budget math in real time, and we'll challenge our own assumptions with fresh data. Until then, remember, wars end when the math does. The Kremlin can spin the story, the economy writes the ending.